Hello, and welcome back to Civilization Education. Last we left off, Socrates and Thrasymachus were discussing if justice was the advantage of the stronger. The conclusion of the first half of this argument was that it fails to account for human fallibility, same as the arguments from Polemarchus. Now, I was planning on skipping the second half of this discussion and the rest of Book 1 and dive into Book 2 because we veer off course to talk about other aspects of justice. However, since I now realize the start of Book 2 is dependent on the ending of 1, let's cover it. After Socrates points out the error in the argument made by Thrasymachus, Polemarchus, now on the side of Socrates, seems to enjoy this by proclaiming what has happened. Cleitophon, defending Thrasymachus, calls him out, insisting that Socrates has not done this. These two students have a short spat over what was said, quote, the advantage of the stronger is just, and what was meant, quote, the advantage of the stronger is what the stronger believes to be his advantage. While this distinction would get Thrasymachus out of the situation he finds himself in, it is only a band-aid to a gaping wound, as it is not much better than my friend is who seems just and my enemy is who seems unjust. If you remember, Polemarchus, after saying this, had to refine it further still. After Thrasymachus explains himself and his position using the art of ruling, medicine, mathematics, and grammar, Socrates and him continue to duel each other snidely. This particular instance is worse than before and gets to the point where Socrates is tired of it and says it is enough before taking the argument set before him. Now tell me, is the doctor in the precise sense of whom you recently spoke a moneymaker or one who cares for the sick? Speak about the man who is really a doctor, meaning the perfect doctor who doesn't err and go against himself. One who cares for the sick, replies Thrasymachus. Socrates asks of a pilot if he is a sailor or a ruler of sailors, and again, Thrasymachus replies, a ruler of sailors. Is there something advantageous for each of them? Certainly, replies Thrasymachus. And isn't the art naturally directed toward seeking and providing for the advantage of each? Yes, that is what it is directed toward. And is there then any advantage for each of the arts other than to be as perfect as possible? This is where Socrates begins to turn Thrasymachus' argument on itself to show that it is really the complete opposite of what he is suggesting. How do you mean this question? Asked Thrasymachus. Just as, Socrates said, if you should ask me whether it is enough for a body to be a body or whether it needs something else, and the art of medicine has now been discovered because a body is defective, and it won't do for it to be like that. The art was devised for the purpose of providing what is advantageous for a body. Would I seem to you to speak correctly in saying that or not? You would, Thrasymachus replied. It is this concession that costs him, though he has not realized it yet. Essentially, Thrasymachus put forward that being a ruler is an art. With that being the case, all Socrates had to do was prove that an art doesn't seek its own advantage, but that is something else. And so in the end, a ruler doesn't seek his own advantage, but the advantage of those that are ruled, just as a doctor doesn't seek his own advantage, but for that of the sick. While it is clear that the doctor, ruler, and all art does seek the advantage of the subject matter, the sick, the ruled, the horse, the sailors, etc., it is not clear it does so completely. Are these not mutually beneficial? Does not the doctor, ruler, horseman, pilot, and so on also gain from their art, that being primarily but not limited to money? Debate this in the comments. After Socrates proves his argument by walking Thrasymachus through every step from doctor to horsemanship, pilot, and ruler, with some reluctance from Thrasymachus, Thrasymachus calls Socrates a child for not knowing the ways of the world and equates a ruler not to a doctor, pilot, horseman, etc., those who seek the advantage of the subject matter of their art, but to shepherds and cowherds, saying they don't seek the advantage of their flock, but of themselves. He also goes on to claim that Socrates doesn't understand the just and justice, saying, quote, you are so far off about the just and justice and the unjust and injustice, they are unaware that justice and the just are really someone else's good, the advantage of the man who is stronger and rules, and personal harm to the man who obeys and serves. Injustice is the opposite. and it rules the truly simple and just. And those who are ruled do what is advantageous for him who is stronger, and they make him whom they serve happy, but themselves not at all. This speech by Thrasymachus, more than anything else so far, makes clear what his priorities are: private gain and all forms of material pleasures. For his argument centers on the fact that when comparing the comforts of the unjust to the unjust always have more. He concludes his speech thusly, quote, "So Socrates, injustice when it comes to being on a sufficient scale is mightier, freer, and more masterful than justice. And as I have said from the beginning, the just is the advantage of the stronger, and the unjust is what is profitable and advantageous for oneself." Of course, the latter part of the unjust he has not held from the beginning. Now I, like Thrasymachus, shall leave you with what was just said. I know that this video is short, and I'm trying to make them longer and to have more content, but for now I'll stick to these natural breaks between arguments in the text. Let me know in the comments if you think these pauses in thought are better or longer videos are. Until next time.